Can you start that over? Oh, we can't, can we?
Yeah, I can, yeah? Oh, no, I can't.
It's okay. I know how to chop it. All right. Hello, this is Clinton and Hillary, and welcome to Black Atlantic, a weekly podcast and media channel bringing East Coast voices to the world.
This week, we have the lovely guests Paul and Akeem of Queens and Kings moving out of Moncton.
Our podcast is weekly with guests and topics, and you can find us anywhere online by just searching for Black Atlantic.
Here we go. What's up?
It's a rough Monday.
Today's a rough Monday.
Welcome to the show. How are you two?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you guys for coming on. I'll say we've been trying to do this for a while. I'm so glad we're finally getting to chat with the two of you. And I will point out that why am I in this weird lighting for people watching? We get to do this while I'm in the same time zone for once. I am in Halifax, Eastern time zone, Atlantic time zone, East Coast. So I'm really happy that we got to do this while I feel closer to you guys by being
here. Still in a different city. Are you guys in Moncton today?
Yeah.
Yes.
How are you, Paul?
Good. Everything's good.
Hillary, Halifax is going good?
Halifax is going great. I'm actually going to get to meet some friends of the show tomorrow, which by the time this airs will have already happened. But Sandra Hannenbaum, hopefully, and Matthew Byard, hopefully will be coming out. I'm here for By Black's Restaurant Week, and I think they're going to be actually implicating some New Brunswick Black-owned restaurants. So it's shaping up to be a busy time, busy week. And then I'm heading back to Toronto Wednesday. Can't keep me here for long.
Nice. Well, we have Paul and Akeem from King and Queens Moving Company.
Kings and
Queens
King.
Moving
Queen comes first.
No. I've seen your logo on cars, on Facebook, on marketing.
You're thinking of Three Kings, and they will probably tell us all about that.
Yeah. I'm still chalking it up to a rough Monday for me. So you want to ask the first question, Hillary?
Absolutely, sure. Paul, I'll start with you, just asking. I already know. I'll start off by saying I know a little bit about the story because I think by the time this will air, I will have already done a CBC feature with the two of you. And actually, no, I'll lie. I'll start by admitting that I accidentally embarrassed all of us in Yorkdale Mall by pretending I didn't know who these people were, and being on the phone and being very, very rude and maybe scarring Akeem for life. And I'm really sorry that I think I'm so hot that people just approach me. So sorry about that. But I will say we had a lovely conversation after. Some of it will be on CBC. Glad that we get to have a more in-depth conversation here. So Paul, tell me about your upbringing. Tell me a little bit about moving to and from Moncton. And since I know a little bit about the story, I would love for you to elaborate a little bit on like some of the racism, if you want to, if it's not too traumatizing, that you like sort of mentioned in the conversation that I got to have with you.
Okay, so I was raised in Amherst, Nova Scotia, born in Moncton, New Brunswick. During the time, Moncton, there's a lot of skinheads and stuff, so that's why we moved. Also, my grandmother had passed too, but we had moved. Just racism was bad going to Queen Elizabeth, seeing my sister get jumped by skinheads. So that's a little bit of background story. Then Amherst, went to school in PEI, personal trained, met Akeem, working for another company, and then him and I worked together in a daycare, and now we do this full time.
Amazing. I know we're gonna get more into that like back and forth because I was trying to piece it all together before, but it's a really cool story. Akeem, what about you? How did you end up in Moncton?
By accident. I'm just joking. No. I grew up in Jamaica. When I first moved to Canada, I lived in Ottawa. Then I moved to Scarborough, Toronto. Then the upbringing was, I was too distracted in a sense. So had to find something smaller. At the time, I had a scholarship to go to either St. Mary's or at Crandall, and I chose to stick to Moncton because it's smaller. So that's what brought me here. Then I graduated in sociology. worked in the childcare field for about 14 plus years. And like Paul said, we kind of had a lot of mutual friends. So we finally crossed paths, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. So two stories of you guys coming together over time to start this really successful company. I hear you, Akeem, how you kind of partially, maybe accidentally ended up in New Brunswick. I hear that story coming from Toronto. And Paul, wow. So this is like Moncton in like the 90s, 2000s. It's horrible to hear that about your sister and the treatment she got by the skinheads, because everyone knows about the Moncton and Riverview skinheads from those days. Did that inspire you in any way to in your health journey? I know I know health and fitness is a super big important part of both your lives, but like being strong and being protect your family or not related?
Yes and no. I mean, it's nice to see a lot has changed, but also at the same time, a lot hasn't changed too. I mean, right? From Three Kings to Queens and Kings, a lot has changed since the skinhead days, but also too, not really.
It's more veiled and more business-like right now. The systematic oppression. Wow, yeah, you're right about that. What is your overall take on life in the Maritimes? Like both of you, like just a couple minutes each, like how it was, how it is. I know for newcomers who come here, they're so excited about all the potential and opportunity, and it is here. But for those of us who have been here longer, it's hard not to talk about some of the jaded history New Brunswick has, right? What's your overall take on life in the Maritimes? We'll start with Akeem.
I mean, mine. It's nothing I haven't gone through. Like again, I moved out when I was 14 years old. Not because I got kicked out, but because I've always been independent. So I took care of my siblings. I did what I could, right? So the whole switch it wasn't too hard because I'm always independent. So I didn't really like the big crowd. So I actually thought that as small as Moncton is, worked out perfectly because I had the opportunity to kind of get myself together and, trying to focus on me. So again, I mean, we've all had that terrible, racist story, and I could go on and on about that. But again, that's not why I kind of live my life, right? To kind of feel sorry for myself, just, what have I learned from that? And again, it's life in Maritimes has been different. It's been different. I have a beautiful family, and I wouldn't have had that if I didn't make that big change, right? So I'm very grateful, very close friends. It's been good. It's been a good journey.
Amazing. Paul, what about you? What do you think of your time in the Maritimes? And as well, I mean, if you want to speak to, like, I was actually gonna ask that you've both chosen to stay and have families there. So clearly you're not running for the hills away from, the overbearing white community of Moncton.
You know what? A lot, and I guess this is from like the personal training aspect. You kind of always have to head toward the fire, right? If you don't head toward the fire, you run away from it, then you'll start suppressing it with other things that you probably shouldn't. So I was really never one to run away from a fight at the end of the day. Definitely a very emotional roller coaster at times being here. Because I'm sure you guys, walk through the mall 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there could be an offside comment said to you or someone wants to touch your hair, So it's just always there. Racism was here long before I was here, and it will still be long before after here. If I get caught up into it, not so much anymore. I don't try to. I try to surround myself around, people don't really like the conversation will typically come up because we're Black, right? Like if we were all hanging out, it will come up, right? There's no way it doesn't come up, right? And there's just like, how do you not have race? Well, it's hard not to discuss it when it's kind of always around. So, I mean, yes, very hard times, but at the end of the day, Moncton has changed for sure, and you are the people you hang around with, right? So, and again, like any given night, you could probably go out downtown. Something offside is going to happen, especially if you're loud or whatever. There's always a possibility, and I don't even think that's just here. I think that could be everywhere. But in a bigger city, like when I go to Ontario, I know that the comments I would get there aren't going to be the comments I'd get here, just because that just wouldn't fly there. Same if you go to Halifax. You go to Halifax, what happens here wouldn't fly there. It just wouldn't. And I think people are, I don't know, you can kind of feel that energy, right? You can kind of feel that energy because typically, in Moncton, there's not a big crowd of us. So, and again, when I say us, I mean like minorities, right? Unless like there's not a big crowd of us typically going to places. So, but again, I'm very emotional at times for sure. Sad, I guess, as well. But again, I'm very happy here. I'm happy my family's here. And there's more positive than there is negative, right? Just kind of smile through the bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right that when groups like us get together, that it's inevitable that something to do with racism is probably going to come up. And it's not that we want to focus on it. I think we all just want to live here in Canada and go about our day-to-day lives and feel like we belong. But then when racism happens, it's kind of like this reminder that not everyone feels that you belong or that you belong here. Like it kind of points out that you're different noticeably. And that's one of the big problems with it. But it definitely it's getting better, and I hope it's going to continue to get better for other generations. But during the pandemic, that's when you two decided to start your moving company, right? And I remember those days, even though 3 years ago seems like, is it 2 years, 3 years ago for you guys? That seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
First year of COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. Things are going really great for you. I'm not going to tell your story. And then you came across some serious drama, and you rose out of that and things got even better, right?
Definitely.
What inspired you to start the moving company, and then what sets you apart from yourself and other moving companies, and anything you want to talk about? Go ahead with it. Hillary, did you want to say something first?
I just want to caveat, because I know the intensity of this story, I would love it if you guys could go back to how you guys met, the daycare. This is an onion of a story. There are layers, and so I'm gonna pull out the popcorn, buckle in, ready. I would love it if you could tell everyone, because it seemed to me, hearing it live in person, so many things had to happen in almost like a cosmic way to get to where you are now. And so I think it's super worthwhile hearing in a verbose, lengthy version. Whoever wants to
forget my precursors. Yeah. Tell us your story in any way you want to let it be known. Yeah. I'm all ears.
I'll let Paul kind of touch upon the details, because again, like he said, while everything's going on, I'm just looking straight ahead, just working. So Paul knows all the details. I'll jump in when I can.
So, little background. I've always done work for moving companies before, with my uncle as a kid, running. He had the whole garbage service back in my hometown. So I was driving garbage trucks at the age of 12. So it was almost like second nature. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. My mom runs her own business. All my uncles, my aunts, my sisters. So again, a little background from what I grew up with, moved to Moncton, second time here. Before I was doing car sales at one point, came back again. And this time I was personal training. So I was personal training, worked at several different clubs. Akeem at the time would have probably just been finishing up at Crandall. Funny story, actually, is I seen Akeem watching a Crandall game, and he was there spectating too. And we had some of the same friends, but he was on the court doing something. That was the first time I actually seen him. Because I ended up going out and someone had mentioned, yeah, that's Akeem. That's my other buddy who I worked with. So we had a lot of mutual friends. And then after that, personal training, and then worked for several clubs. And at one point I was working at a place called Fit Camp 90. And I met Akeem working with this other moving company, and we just ended up talking. So
I wouldn't call it a moving company though. I'd call it a moving guy.
Okay, the moving company. And we met there. And then from there, I needed help running this daycare at Fit Camp 90. So Issa Sek, who runs that, still runs it to this day. He had hired me as a personal trainer. And then at the time, he basically, I don't know if he manifested a daycare, because the daycare wasn't there before I went there. So we get a daycare, and it was myself, Akeem, and Issa running this daycare. I don't think there was ever a daycare ran by 3 black males. We didn't have any, there was no female staff there 24/7, but it was great. We had bouncy castles, the whole nine. We'd do boxing, wrestling, track, anything sports-wise we would do with the kids. So I hired him from the moving company that caused a lot of heat at one point between, as Akeem said, the moving guy, because he said I couldn't hire his employees. But we both had different jobs at the time, so it was really weird. So then from there, Akeem came and worked and ran the daycare. We both ran a daycare together and did personal training. At that point, we actually still worked for that same guy too, from time to time. And I guess that is how that came to be. And then everything kept closing. He was still, you were in school at the time, right, Akeem? You were back in school, and I was actually personal training. And schools kept closing during the pandemic. Gyms kept closing during the pandemic. And during March break, we decided to put a post out for Three King Movers. And Three King Movers was initially, the name was created, myself, my partner, Akeem, and Kingston, right? So Kingston, Three Kings, right? He was hoping to be the third one day. So Three King Movers was the first initial name. We didn't even really have a name, though, because before we actually put the post out, me and Akeem did a move for this other family. So this other family
tell the listeners who Kingston is.
Kingston's my son.
Yeah, so that's a beautiful, so that's the Three Kings.
So Kingston's my son.
Generation hand-me-down legacy. Yeah.
Right. So Kingston's my son. And so that's where that name came from. And then we actually did a move prior to it. So a family got left high and dry. Long story short, Akeem called me. We ended up moving them. They wanted to bash this moving guy. Akeem's like, no. And then we realized that we could probably do a better job than that. So we didn't even have a page. So then we finally made a page on our March break, put out a post, and we were doing moving part-time for a bit. And then we both just said, hey, like, I remember saying to Akeem, I was like, look, Akeem, I was like, you're doing school, I was doing personal training. For what I know from being an entrepreneur and some of the books I read, if you chase 2 rabbits, you catch none. I said, we're doing part this. We got to either be all in or all out. So we went all in, and we never looked back. So that was like, I think that was like maybe 2 or 3 months. And like, we just never looked back. And then shit hit the fan, and when shit hit the fan and it stuck, we just kept going through it. And then the community came through it with us. And by the end of the story, it was a really good story. And just, and there's still a lot of talk about it. There really is, more than I'd like. We have a lot of repeat customers that still use us, still remember the story. And I believe something will always probably happen, because the guy still does move, and like, we are still around. So we're going to cross paths eventually. I never actually even seen the guy that registered the name. So yeah, long story short, but he registered Three King Movers, messaged me that he owned me. Obviously, I didn't like that. How do you own somebody? And I'm thinking of my son too, right? How do you own Kingston? Like, put the logos on his truck. Jessica, who does our billing and everything, she was dealing with a lot of emails, looking into stuff, being like, no, like, we have so many days to do all this. I believe even we had some help from outside people too, letting us know. And then we had the community support, and so like a lot had happened. I don't know if there's anything else I might have missed, Akeem, that you want to touch on.
I mean, the most important part was when they So the competitors, I guess, you'd like to say, tried to kind of turned us against each other in a sense, where it's like he posted the story about your charges, and that's when you went kind of, full out here, this is me. People know who I am, so that was posted. And then again, between you and myself, we know a lot of people. So that was posted on Moncton's Hit or Miss. And I guess the owner of that group said, no, that can't fly. So they took it down. I actually thought that was an important part because, again, how are you going to, dig so deep into someone that you don't know and dig up, their past and try to use that against them?
No, 100%. Yeah. So that was a big part too. So I had charges. I wasn't charged. They were just pending charges. Fully took responsibility of everything I was. I did go through a rough patch. I did change my life around. This charge was dragging on. I disclosed it to most of my personal training clients, which I didn't have to. Issa knew. That's why Issa hired me, I believe, because I told him my first interview, like, hey, I'm going through this. This is what happened. And then even the other moving guy, he knew, and I believe he shared it with the other guy. And then they posted the charges. And again, like Akeem said, a lot of people kind of did know who we were. I mean, when I worked at Good Life, I remembered so many people's names still to this day. Even when I sold cars, people remember me from selling cars. And Akeem was in with so many kids, so many wee college, and being in Moncton. You guys both had your fair time in Moncton. Moncton's very small, right?
Specific groups, right? There's the basketball community. There's the volleyball. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And I mean, go ahead.
No, Paul, you go ahead.
And I mean, to be fair, when we're out, I mean, I'm 6'2", Akeem's 5'11",
and a half.
Let's throw that out there. But you see us typically, and we have big personalities. You know what I mean? And there's not times when if Akeem recognizes a kid he helped at Fit Camp or Wee College or is at his school, he's going to talk to them and ask them how they are. You know what I mean? And same with me. So at the end of the day, if we're at Costco, we're humans at the end of the day, right? Too. So we have these interactions with people that, are life lasting, acquaintances, friends, or whatever it may be. So again, Moncton is very small, right? The commute isn't like Halifax or Ontario. You can drive across town at 7 or 6:45 in the morning, make it from Dieppe to the other side, or if it's rush hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes at most. So Moncton's very, very small. So we're around.
Mm-hmm. So to summarize, since I know the story, for anyone who was trying to follow all the layers of the onion, you sort of didn't really know each other before both working with the moving guy. No. Then Akeem gets hired by Paul to help turn a gym into a daycare during the pandemic. Then COVID happens and nothing's really open. This black family moving from New Brunswick to Ontario gets left high and dry by the moving guy. And you both save the day and decide, hey, we're good at this. I'm going to quote you on what you said. Let's do the opposite of what the moving guy has always does as a business model and be super successful. And then another person completely not involved in the story, who's a complete moving competitor. Wait, I already screwed up the story. Moving guy is the one who's also trying to throw out Paul's charges and pit you against each other. Random other competitor is the one who steals the logo, steals the name, and the community is like, hold up, we trust these guys. And I believe you also told me when we met in person that he was going to friends to print the logos, and you were being told by people in your lives that someone was doing this behind your back on top of being told that he owns you and all of these things. So like stupid move upon stupid move.
Yeah. So that was a really dumb move. So one of my high school friends, he literally went and boasted and said how he was working with us and blah blah blah. And then my buddy called me and he's like, "Are you working with?" I was like, "I never met the guy." I'm like, "I'm sure you've seen that." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's crazy." And then the same week or the week after, a guy used to detail cars when I was selling cars. He has a business of doing logos on vehicles and car wraps, and he was just like, he's like, "Dude," he's like, "this guy's here trying to print your logo." He's like, "Are you in business with him?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, I'm definitely not doing it." And I was like, "Thanks, man." I was like, "I appreciate it." I was like, "But you're a businessman." I go, "So go make your money." I go, "But we actually own the logo." I was like, Jessica did actually do the proper thing to own the copyrights, and that's just, you just have to actually mail the logo to yourself. For anyone that doesn't know that, that's all you have to do for to own a logo. So you have to actually send it to yourself to own the copyrights. And again, same with registering a business. You know, at the end of the day, we didn't register the business. We should have. Why didn't we? Well, most people wouldn't actually try to go. Most people wouldn't. But being an entrepreneur is a cutthroat industry. But I'm just saying, for anyone listening out there, if you have a business, just register it, save the hassle. And again, this probably something else probably would have happened. But again, we didn't register the business name. We didn't think someone would try to register it, and they did. And like I said, you have the messages of what they said, and they were trying to get all of our information. They're like, "We need your Facebook." Like they said to Jessica, "You need to send us your Facebook login." Well, like they wanted us to like. We're not like, "Are you nuts?"
The lawyer talking to her on Facebook.
The lawyer?
Yeah, lawyer talking to her on Facebook.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Well, at the end of it, what actually really makes the story, at the end of it, all of his coworkers were telling us everything he was doing, and then how he never paid any of them, and like was just put it all out there. And it's been on Hit or Miss Moncton a few times, and even still, just last week, someone posted who the moving company is. They said his new name, and he said, "This is the guy that stole 3 King movers, and they are now Queens and Kings. I would go with them. I would stay very far away from this company." Insert their name. I know their name. At the end of the day, I'm not here to bash somebody.
Exactly. They also changed it.
Everyone should actually do their own research. There's a lot of fly-by-night companies, right? So everyone should actually do, because for anyone that doesn't know, moving companies, there's like 80 new ones all the time. People holding people's stuff. People will just become a moving company and take your stuff just to make money, and they're not legit. So like, you should actually really do your research. It happens a lot to people in Ontario and in bigger cities like Halifax. There's a lot of moving companies there too. Moncton's very small. Again, it's very hard to get away with something like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yo, I didn't know that at all.
Craziest story.
Yeah. So what I remember from those days, so this happened in September of 2021, and I heard about this because my partner is really good friends with your partner, Paul, and this kind of set the internet all ablaze for a few days, like in Moncton, right? This was on Hit or Miss, and I know that there was, the guy had stolen your name. He'd been bullying you before he did that. He'd been making sly comments here and there on different websites and stuff like that. And then it became this huge situation on Hit or Miss, and you never know what's going to happen when a post gets posted there. But you guys actually had an outpouring of support from friends and family, of course, but also strangers. And I thought it was really amazing because it may or may not have happened, but I try to imagine in like a George Floyd type era where something like this happens, and you don't necessarily get the wave of support that you did, like people maybe calling race cards or calling you bad businessmen or just finding a way to shame and blame you for what this other guy did to your company. But actually he was the one in the end who got he was getting harassed. His company was getting tons of 1-star ratings. He was he basically got shamed out of business. His employees started to come out of the woodwork, like you said, and say all these bad things about him. And yeah, people flocked to your aid and support. I know you had also, don't get me wrong, I know you both had built up an incredible reputation to begin with before this all happened, but the way it unfolded, I know from like us owning a company like in 2015 or 2018, when someone would like do something horrible to us or exaggerate or make up some story about something that happened in our business, it would be this mob mentality where everyone would be like messaging us the most horrible things. We'd get like private racist messages saying like we should shut them down. Where are they from? They should leave this country. They should get kicked out of Moncton. All kinds of nonsense. And the kind of support you guys got was amazing. And I just think I just think that's all really crazy. What is it like for you now? Like this years later, like how is it all going?
Can I also ask a segue question into that? Because this is
Yeah.
why you switched to Queens and Kings, because you didn't end up retaking Three King moving back. So if you want to share that story and then lead into what things are like now with that new name. Yeah. Whoever would like
Whoever
to
wants to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hakeem, you want to take this one?
Yeah.
I guess so. I guess I actually don't remember what the text looked like. Like Paul said, I literally stay clear of that. I try to focus on, the task at hand. But I do remember that the person or that moving company that did register the name and was getting all this heat and this hate from the community. At the end of it, he got so sickened by everything that's been happening. He tried to return the name in a sense. So he's like, I don't want it anymore. You guys can have the name back, right? At that time, we were in the midst of transitioning, and we were still trying to figure it out. So like, while that Three King Movers thing had happened, we didn't really think too much of it. We were just working away, and in the transition of changing the name. But yeah, so he tried to return the name after all that was happening, and the Queens and Kings kind of stuck with us, just to kind of touch upon that. Queens and Kings, Paul and myself, we were raised by really, really single, strong Black women. We both have, strong partners in our corner. And again, without the woman by our side, none of this would have been possible. So we tried to reward them with, having the queens in front of the kings, just because, with all the great kings, there's a superior queen, right? So that's why we kind of chose that name. Probably want to touch on that.
Yeah, so just to touch back on it too. So the company was called No Stress Movers, and he actually stole that name from someone in the States, and we got a message from them, and he was happy that they were going through that. So he stole No Stress Moving from a company in the States with the same coloring and lettering. Okay, so he already done stole it.
Every dog has his day, eh? Wow.
Right. So yeah. So I just kind of flashed back to me.
Yeah,
and then
it is true.
And then Queens and Kings, 100%. Me and Hakeem were both raised by our moms. We wouldn't be here without women, right? You know what I mean? At the end of the day. And my daughter, actually, Queen is in her middle name. So I still have a piece of that. I have them both in there now because my daughter actually wasn't in the picture when the first one came. So my daughter's name her middle name does have Queen in it. So it's kind of nice to hone that in as well for myself. So yeah, just to touch on what Hakeem said, that's basically what happened in a nutshell.
In some ways, maybe this name, I don't want to judge because I know the original name was really important to you, but in some ways, maybe this name is better. You've been able to include more of the supports in your lives and pay honor to to not just the three men you are with you and Hakeem, Paul, and your son, but the woman and the whole family kind of thing as well. Do you like the new name better?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. And I mean, for really we're really trying to build a culture, right? So we want to make sure everyone is accepted at the end of the
That's
day.
what I mean.
Whether you want to be a queen or a king, or queen and king, cool. King and
Yeah.
queen, cool. However you want to say it, right? Everyone's accepted, and trying to build that culture of, what is this new generation going to be like? Who do you want to stand for? What do you not want to stand for? Because back in the day, we might not have had the support, but you know what? We're 2023 and we have the support, and it was nice seeing how Moncton was previous and to where they are now. And it does sometimes feel really shitty, because I feel like it's like a pity. We have customers be like, hey, no, we want to go with you guys. Like, we'll wait. Like, it's like, hey, like, don't wait. We're busy. Totally understand if you go with another company. And that's what we try to work with other companies too, to pass off jobs, because but we have some people that will actually just wait to do business with us. But we do provide a service of above and beyond. Like, we have a move coming up on the 28th. We're packing, we're moving, and the other person who was in here, Jessica's going to be driving the senior to the spot. I don't know what companies do that. Right? She doesn't have a way to get there. She wants to line up a cab, and we're taking her. So it's not just the moving, it's personal, and we don't want to forget about them.
Yeah.
And that's the culture we want to create. And that's how moving companies should be. We shouldn't be just trying to, yes, we have to get paid, but we also are here to provide a service, and a great one at that. And we want to make sure you don't have those bad stories of your stuff not getting unloaded, the price getting jacked up 3 times the amount. There's a lot of with every business, there's a bad model, and then with every business, there's a good model, right? And where we're at, I guess at the time, there's only like 3 or 4 really good ones around us, for the most part. And we watch them. If anything, we watch what the good companies are doing, and we try to embrace it and do it too, because everything's just regurgitated information, and it's at your fingertips. And, everyone can do it and be a good human, but at the end of the day, we don't always have good humans. So we try to create that culture with Queens and Kings Moving, and again, we go above and beyond. It's not just the moving service that we do. There's tons of other things that we do as well, and always try to give back when we can and keep pushing forward when this stuff happens. But again, there is some things that do happen that are out of our control, that we don't, because people will wait for us, and we don't like people to wait just to book with us. Like, you should get a service. There's another service to get, and I hope that it accommodates your time and date, because we fill up fairly quick, especially through the end of the month.
That's a good problem to have, Paul. I gotta be honest. As far as problems go for companies, feeling bad about having people waiting to accept your services. That's a good company problem to have.
But again, too, we will coach them on that. We're like, hey, we're busy, but I'll call this person, or here's an alternative, right? So it's not like we don't try to find other alternatives. But again, if they want our service, I understand. And a lot of them have had bad services in the past. There's some people we've already moved 4 times, right? Some people just move a lot. And there's people we've already moved. I know I can think of 4 right now that we've already moved 4 times. Yeah, renters.
Oh yeah, for sure.
People, renters, students.
Of course.
We're moving people back to Ontario now.
Ontario.
I was going to ask about that. That's something I forgot about. That's what I wanted to ask about. So, okay, I've got a couple questions lined up. I wanted to ask about some of the challenges and obstacles you faced. What's it like, running a business? How things been the past few years? But it sounds like overall they've been pretty steady. You've had to logistics, maybe employees, and dealing with the demand. But I want to ask you something about if people are exodusing out of New Brunswick now after the pandemic. But just quick, Akeem, did you say that during that whole time that stuff was happening in 2021, y'all weren't even really thinking about it. Like it wasn't even really phasing you. It wasn't affecting you. You were just focused on the business and that's it. And all the drama was just
No,
kind of
no,
happening in the background.
no. I mean, again, so the way my mind works is I'm just trying to get what we were doing done. And then once I got home, I kind of read through it, but I don't respond, right? So yes, to answer your question, it was in my mind. I just didn't pay it
Okay,
any
I was
mind.
gonna say, wow.
No.
That's how you got through it. I wouldn't have been able to ignore it. Yeah, because that was a lot
But
going on.
but again, though, I mean, again, it just goes back to the past, right? That doesn't define me.
Of course.
And at the same time, like my mom always reminded me, it's like just make sure that you're taking in before you respond, because all people are looking for is to label you as an angry black man. That's all they're trying to, you know what I mean? Like, and it has happened over and over again, but you know, over time you just learn how to kind of cope with that and, you know, turn into something different.
Well, that's what I mean. 7 years ago, yeah, you guys may have, everyone may have taken the bad things the other company was saying about you at face value without like,
Yeah.
and even people who supported you may have been afraid to speak up online and come out of the woodwork and come to your aid for fear of themselves being mobbed on. But yeah, so are you seeing a big increase in people who have came to New Brunswick in the past 2-3 years and were like, nope, nope, I'm leaving? Hakeem or Paul?
Grass isn't always greener on the other side. And it really isn't, because if you don't do your research here, things are going to be the exact same if you don't change your own habits. So if you don't know how to adapt the East Coast lifestyle, and it's a lifestyle, right down here is more relaxed, kick back. Again, you still have your idiots who drive like maniacs out there, but it's very laid back here. So for some people coming here, they didn't seem to fit in. And there's always people in the group that say, hey, I'm here, just don't know how to fit in. And, you know, they're not doing the research. They're not getting their child into a program. So now a parent has to stay back and watch their child. One parent gets to work and they can't really mingle. They don't know a babysitter, or they're not sure. And I mean, during the pandemic, let's face it, there's all these new fears that came out. People were living in fear of what was real and what wasn't. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement was going on, and it was heavy. Everyone was on social media.
Yep.
TikTok was blowing up. Everyone was being distracted by a number of things. So with that being said, it was like there was a lot going on. So when people come here, you know, and again, we weren't even allowed. It was like you had remember the point where you had the vaccine, but you weren't allowed having people at your house, but you could go to a restaurant to eat if they had the vaccine. Like, so there's a lot of things going on there. And it's like, if you're a newcomer, who are you going to go out with? Right. And that's just not good for our mental health. Humans need interaction. Not everyone can just jump on screen and talk to people, or, you know, be vulnerable at any time. People were confined to their space. So I think that had a big effect on people moving and transitioning during the pandemic, and a lot of people with health problems. There's just a lot of things going on. So when people are moving back now, it doesn't really surprise me. But some people, I know a handful of people who we moved. And again, when we move people, we let them know, hey, if you go into a shop and there's no price tags on it, go the other way. They will look at your license plate and see if it's Ontario. They will jack the price up. Like, you have to do your research before you come down here. Like, there's certain areas I would tell people, like, hey, it's not going to be the best if you get a house in the middle of, you know, Shediac, where someone lived for 20 years, it might not be the best bet if you don't know the history of moving into that area. Not that you can't do it, but you might think twice. Maybe being on the outskirts first would be better. than being close to the water, because everyone wants to be on the water, but sometimes it's not ideal. And there's just certain areas that I would go to if I were some people, or do research, but people just don't. They're just like, oh, East Coast, they don't care about anything, and would come down here. It's just like, it's easier, and not everyone's welcoming. Not everyone's welcoming.
That's a big thing that we've discussed before, the idea that like it was a big thing in Manju Varma's report on systemic racism that the East Coast is perceived as welcoming, but then a lot of people aren't. I forget who it was, but I think it was on our podcast that someone said that people think that Ontario isn't welcoming, but the Maritimes are almost welcoming to a point of like nosiness and trying to get into your business, and it's actually not necessarily out of just like kindness. And so I do think that people see the Maritimes as just this like holly jolly beautiful place where everyone's your friend, and like, as I've done a bunch of research on, KKK still prominent. Like, it's not all green grass and roses, and we've all experienced racism. But I do find it very interesting to see how the market has fluctuated, trying to take advantage of the cost, and then figuring out how to balance the like lifestyle portion once they've made that choice. And Keem, did you want to add anything too before I ask my next question?
No.
Good. Perfect. I was curious because I know that obviously you both talked about being parents and having families and all this stuff. Like, how are you? I wanted to ask this for CBC too. How are you balancing all of this? Like, you guys seem to just be doing so much. I'm curious how you're balancing, you know, all of these responsibilities and being successful and navigating everything, you know, lately.
I'll start off, I guess. It's gotten better over the years because we're a little bit more established. So it's easier to kind of, you know, put into the schedule that, you know, these days are my days because I want to do something with the family. I know before, when we actually first started out, we were running around with a chicken, with our like a chicken with our heads cut off. I'm sorry. Because again, we were trying to figure out what's working, what doesn't work, and, you know, try to accommodate and move, and, you know, and again, it was busier then. Now it's a little bit easier because we're a little bit more established, and to find that balance. I still have to sometimes because I know all I do is work, so I'm still getting better at that. But yeah, that's, again, it's better now, so we can find a time to actually put in family.
Awesome. Paul, what about you? How are you figuring out this work-life balance? Because I'll be honest, I super don't have it figured out yet either. So how's it working out for you?
You know what? During the pandemic, I would say I got a lot more grounded. Did some therapy. I was doing Bible study at the time too. But typically, as myself, I know I hold a lot of stuff in, and then I typically explode. My explosions are just getting better, right? My explosions just aren't as big. Life's always going to happen. And with health and fitness and everything, like, you really have to have your mind right at times. My partner, Jessica, she's great with the kids. The house is busy, billing, and everything that she does. So I have the support, very strong support at home. So when I'm out working, I know, you know, my family's safe. They're taken care of. So like that's half of it itself. But for the work wise and stuff, at the end of the day, you know, don't take life too serious. Have some fun. At the end of the day, I got kids, right? So I don't want to embarrass my kids. So when all that stuff was going on, and I didn't want to be the, like Akeem said, the angry black man, because people want to see that, right? So we got to kind of persevere, hold our head up stronger. But like, you know what? Did I not go down a back alley and cry? 100%. Did I not sit in the steering wheel and scream "fuck" as loud as I could? Like, as loud as I could, 40 times? 100%. I'm human. That's not me going and smashing someone's face or drinking myself till I'm obliviated till I numb the pain, or doing drugs, because I've done that path too, right? So my path now is My coping skills are better. I still explode. Still get taken advantage of in certain situations. And all I do is try to get better and take more accountability. So with the business and everything, I always say, look, if we didn't create this business, we wouldn't have created this problem. We have to deal with the problem. We have to have more solutions, less problems. And even the guys, we always try to make sure, when they come, we help them do whatever they do. So there's one guy who's going back and he's finishing his school. There's another guy, he started his own business. So I love to see them come and go build something for themselves, because I think everyone does have that entrepreneurship in them. Just someone hasn't guided them to go build that career. So everyone that we work with, we never had bad terms with anybody. Even there were some close calls where there could have been some fights. I'm going to be serious. There were some close calls where there could have been some fights. And you know what? We always seem to find ways where we would, we'd be okay regardless. Because again, this is our community, and we want to treat people how they treat us, and we try to treat them the best way we can. And again, we're here to stay. We're here to stay for now. I don't know what's the 5 or 10-year plan. I'd like to travel the world. That's my end goal. But again, for now, we're here and things are going well. But for coping wise, when shit hits the fan, the fucks come out.
Yeah, that was a great answer. And thank you for sharing that. We were going to ask about a 5-10-year plan, future, but we'll skip over that. I want to say that's, it's a big thing for us men to admit any sort of vulnerability or pain at all, and especially for Black men, which is a topic that Hillary and I are going to be exploring in the near future. So yeah, thanks for being so open like that and sharing that. We're going to ask the last question before we wrap up here. We always try to keep these things definitely like under an hour. So just finally, Hakeem and Paul, like, you've talked a lot about entrepreneurship and running your own business, work-life balance, figuring it all out, going through the learning curves. Do you have any advice that you'd give to aspiring like entrepreneurs who want to get out and get started for themselves, especially those from underrepresented communities, but just for anyone at all? Like, final thoughts. Sorry, Hakeem, do you want to start? Sorry, man. Yeah, we usually only interview one person at a time. That's our bad. Yeah, Hakeem, yeah.
I have to process this one, so.
Okay, Paul.
I'll let the public speaker go.
No. You know what? I would tell anybody at the end of the day, you have to have find your purpose first, whatever that may be. You have to love what you're doing to an extent, right? You don't have to love all aspects of it, but you got to love a certain component. Myself and Hakeem, we love making sure customers are happy. I like making sure it's a good job, well done, regardless of whatever I'm doing. If I'm selling shoes, selling cars, personal training, I make it very personal. But I'd really tell someone, and then make a smart goal, right? It has to be specific. You have to have detailed time. You have to really plan it out and take the actions, and don't put yourself around people that don't believe in you. You have to have people that believe in you. If they don't believe in you, or if they think your ideas are crazy, I tell, kick rocks, get lost. You only have one life, right? You have the day you're born and the day you die, and you have that dash that's very small that we all have. And that's all the people you affected. So do something with your time, because you don't want to be 70 years old. And again, I've trained people who are 70 or 90 and they wish they did something more. So work hard and dream big, and don't look back and roll till the fucking wheels fall off.
Solid advice.
Whoa.
Is that a hard act to follow? Hakeem. No, I'm teasing. Any thoughts? Any life lessons? Any advice?
I guess be adventurous. And what I mean by that is, again, I've always been in the childcare field. I'm a huge sport fanatic, so I sleep, breathe, eat sports, right? That's all I know. I know when my son was born, I was probably the most scared guy in the world, just because I thought I'd fail, but seem like I'm doing a good job, and I thought I had it down because I worked with kids. So I thought it was going to be easy, but that's never the case. I kind of took a leap of faith, and when Paul decided to be like, you know what, you chase two rabbits, and you won't catch it. So it's like, you know what, I know I'm good at the childcare field. I know I could always go back there. That's my backup plan. So I took a leap of faith. I trusted in my guy, and we never looked back. So again, be adventurous, explore. You know what I mean? Explore. Make sure that when you are trying to reach those goals, that they're attainable. Don't set too high expectations of yourself, because that's when you'll fail. But yeah, so I mean, make sure your goals are attainable. Be adventurous. That's my advice. Be adventurous.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, you want to add?
One last thing: you need to have someone in your foxhole. You need to have someone that calls you out, like regardless what it is. You have to be okay with that. Someone you need, like with starting anything, you need someone to be able to call you out and to be like, "Hey, but you said this, and you said you were going to do this." Right? You need that one. Like, so me and Akeem were in each other's foxhole. Like, regardless, at the end of the day, we've had some heated times. I sent some texts, mad texts that I took him back. I apologize for, but still, he's my brother. I'm in his foxhole. I want to see him do good at whatever he's doing. If it's family, if it's life, his kids or whatever, I'm in his foxhole for all that forever. And he's in mine. He's in mine. And you need someone that's in your foxhole that would be like, hey, you said you're going to do this. Get it done.
That's amazing advice. Thanks for throwing in that last little tidbit. We're definitely going to make some teasers out of those entrepreneurial / life lessons before the episode. But so for anyone who wants to find you, anyone who wants to hire Queen and King's Moving Company, I know there might be a waiting period, but that's still an option. Do you want to drop like the website, a handle quickly before we sign out here? Tell people, though, even if you have someone moving in the future, keep this name in mind. How can people find you, Paul?
So we're on Facebook. Website is www.queensandkingsmoving.ca. We're on Twitter, Google. We have our number as well. So just look us up. We're on Google. It's probably the easiest, or call, and we'll get you booked.
Perfect.
But just a quick advice. He said,
Yep.
We'll get you booked. Make sure that you are doing your research and booking in advance. Don't call us tomorrow telling us that you got to move on Sunday. That's not how that works.
Sometimes it's how it works. Sometimes, but not always.
These guys' biggest obstacle right now is fitting you in. Like, so I said, like, that's a good problem to have for a moving company. They come highly recommended every time. Thank you to all of our listeners, to everyone who tuned in, both on our audio streaming channels and the YouTube channel, which we are trying to now grow after being just like audio for so long. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share it on your page, share it with a friend. That really helps just get those views out a little bit more. And this is Clinton Davis. Hillary, I don't know if you want to sign yourself out.
Crapberry, thank you guys so much for coming on. Thank you for meeting me in person. Thank you for doing the CBC thing. If the CBC segment hasn't aired by the time this drops, then it would be airing the very next day. So tune in or go find it on our page. Thank you for doing the double interview and telling us the long version of that story. I knew it was worthwhile hearing, and I hope that, from this story comes, so much better. And I know that it's not great to have this like thing follow you, but obviously the success is so worthwhile, and you guys are just doing a kick-ass job. Good for you.
Amazing.
Yeah,
all right. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you.